And welcome back. This is Nick Siekierski, researchteacher.com. Greetings from Warsaw, Poland. Unfortunately, winter is almost upon us here in Eastern Europe. The temperatures have dropped dramatically in the last few weeks. We had a nice week about 10 days ago, and now it's just not so great. It is about, this is in Celsius, so 8 degrees Celsius. Not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's cold. It's like in the 40s, maybe in the 50s. So that's what we're dealing with, but that's part of the charm of living in this neck of the woods, this part of the world. So we soldier on. But speaking of soldiers and heroes, something that I wanted to focus on today was Alt Hero. Alt Hero is a comic book project that has been put on by Vox Day. Vox Day is the author of books like SJWs Always Lie. SJWs are social justice warriors, and the recently released sequel, SJWs Always Double Down. He's also written a book called Cuck-servative about the fake nature of much of the conservative movement, which I highly recommend that you read. And his latest project is Alt Hero, and Alt Hero is going to be a series of comic books set in a fictional universe. And let me read the quick blurb here. And just so you know, Alt Hero is a free starter project. Free starter is the alternative to Kickstartr. It's spelled just like it sounds, except there's no E at the second to last letter. So free, STARTR. So back to Alt Hero. Alt Hero is a world not too terribly different than our own. It is a world where the Wehrmacht generals overthrew Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in 1939, and where the first atomic bomb was dropped on the order of Reichskanzler Jodl on Soviet territory in 1944, leading to the fall of the Soviet Union in 1956. It is a world where Japan attacked Australia instead of Pearl Harbor, and China occupies the Korean Peninsula. It is a world of 4 superpowers, where the European Union rivals the United States of America for wealth and influence, and where China and Russia possess the 2 most formidable militaries on the planet. And Alt Hero is a world of newly discovered superhumans. No one knows why rumors of individuals with seemingly impossible abilities first began to appear in the early 1960s, but in 1972, Linus Pauling conclusively proved the existence of a new breed of beings with superhuman capabilities that were genetically distinct from conventional humanity. Pauling named his new breed Homo sapiens sequens and won an unprecedented 3rd Nobel Prize for this discovery. Assisted by funding from the National Science Foundation and the International Monetary Fund, he established the Institute for Enhanced Human Development to study them. Some scientists believe Homo sequens to be a consequence of the advent of atomic weapons. Others consider it to be an indicator of alien intervention. Optimists consider them to be the next step in the evolution of man, while pessimists fear that they will inevitably bring an end to the human race. Regardless, what is clear is that Homo sequens is real, that it is rare, and that its individual members are invaluable to the government or private organization that can effectively harness their wide range of talents. So Alt Hero will be set in a, like I just read, a new universe, an alternate history. It'll feature different sets of heroes. One of them will be the Global Justice Initiative, which are heroes based around the European Union. And from the perspective of the typical reader of this comic book, they will appear to be kind of villains, but unlike the traditional stereotype of villains, they themselves see their actions as being noble, as being just. I mentioned the Global Justice Initiative, and the main character is Captain Europa, a Captain America-looking guy, but with a big EU circle of stars on his chest. So he is one of the main characters. There's also going to be other characters. The most notable and most visually vibrant, you could say, and controversial is Rebel. She is a very attractive woman with a Confederate flag halter top, and so that's something that's going to surely set off some people on the left. But the whole point of this project isn't just to go out there and to be controversial, but to offer a viable alternative to the rather pathetic state of comics today, especially from the big two, Marvel and DC. I haven't been a huge follower of comics in the last decade or more. I used to be pretty into comics for a period of maybe 5 or even 10 years, kind of early on when I was younger, and then I took some time off, and then I got back into it for at least 3 or 4 years with some titles. Some of you, if you know comics, there's something called Top Cow. I'm not even sure if that publisher's around still, but they had some good titles like Battle Chasers and Danger Girl and Spirit of the Tao. That might have been Dark Horse, but it's something along those lines. But then I stopped because actually it was quite satisfying in a sense, because the comics that I was reading actually had a story arc that completed. And one that I didn't mention is called Fathom, which is pretty cool. Michael Turner, the artist, he passed away from cancer. That was sad, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. But it was cool because at least a few of those series that I mentioned had a full story arc where it was like 1 or 2 seasons, you can say, or series, and then the story finished. So it wasn't like, Action Comics or Superman or X-Men or whatever, where it just goes on in infinity and it's been around for 50 years. But it was something that, lasted a few years, and it was quite satisfying from the perspective of, having some finality, having a sustainable plot and characters and development and all of that, but it comes to a conclusion, and okay, that's the end. So that was satisfying. But unbeknownst to me, in this time that I have not really been following comics, that comics, like unfortunately so much in our society, has become extremely politicized. Just 2 examples of what has happened in comics is one character is Miss Marvel, and that is a character obviously from Marvel Comics. The name of the character is Kamala Khan. She's a fictional superheroine appearing in Marvel Comics, and she is Marvel's first Muslim character to headline her own comic book. And the comic was awarded the Hugo Award for Best Graphic Story in 2015. The Hugo Awards are literary awards for the best science fiction or fantasy work. Another character is Faiza Hussein, who is another Muslim character who, in one of the comic series in here, it looks like she appeared in Captain Britain and M.I. And the point of this character is that she becomes the wielder of Excalibur. Excalibur, of course, is the mythical sword of King Arthur. I don't think I need to explain the absurdity of having a Muslim character become the wielder of the sword strongly associated with Christendom, with King Arthur, with Western civilization. Now, I'm not against Muslim characters appearing in comics, but the problem here is, and in many other cases, you could go on and on with the various leftist narratives being pushed in comics, it's that it's being shoved down our throat, and comics aren't being produced as something to appeal to the longtime comic book reading audience, but they're just another tool. They've become another tool for SJWs, social justice warriors. SJWs might be a new term for you if you're not familiar with what's been going on in politics the last few years, but social justice warriors, this is a pejorative term against people who basically feel compelled to put their politics in your face, to criticize you, to accuse you of being a racist if you don't agree with basically leftism. That they will call you a Nazi if you're anywhere to the right of Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. And basically these are unpleasant people who are losers in their own life, and they take out their frustration in their own life, whether it's their inability to have satisfying relationships or their inability to be attractive, appealing people with normal lives and normal friends. So they take out this rage that they carry around inside them on others through their political machinations. And one way that they do that is that they excommunicate people from various fields if they don't subscribe to the narrative. And one example of that is the artist Chuck Dixon, who, and actually I'm not sure if he's an artist or he's just the writer. I believe he's just a writer, but nonetheless he's the very well-known writer, comic book writer in Batman. I believe he did X-Men as well. He was the co-creator of the character Bane, well-known villain in the Batman series. But he is an example of a comic book artist professional who was basically shunned and blacklisted from the industry. Now, if you visit Vox's website, that's voxday.blogspot.com, he has, in the last few days especially, has been posting some of this stuff on Alt Hero, and he gives some examples of text messages and things showing that there really is a blacklist in the comic book community, which means that, demonstrates that if you are to the right of the far left, then you are not welcome in the comics industry. If you're not willing to support their social justice warrior narratives, then you're not going to work in the comic book industry. Thankfully, Alt Hero presents a very dramatic and so far successful alternative, and I have to mention this, I should have mentioned it in the beginning, but Alt Hero is on this free starter platform. It's a 30-day campaign in order to raise money to produce the comics, to pay the artists, to pay for the printing and distribution of these comics to backers. The original goal was $25,000 within 30 days. That goal was achieved, I believe, within the first 8 hours. Currently, the free starter project, with 4 days remaining, is at $151,000 over that. And like I said, 4 days to go. That's more than 6 times their original goal. There are nearly 1,500 backers, about 200 of them just giving $5 for the ebook novels, and then more people paying either for the published novels. There's different packages here. You can get a poster, you can get paperbacks, hardbacks, and the one that I subscribed for is the $150 Rebel figurine package. So that'll basically be one of these, I think they call it a resin statue of a rebel. You've seen this in comic book shops or different places. And so it'll come with a figurine as well as paperback and digital editions and t-shirts, stuff like that. For me, it's not so much about the stuff, although I think it's a pretty good deal, but it's about supporting a really worthy project. And so I want to encourage you to at least take a look at this page, even if you're not planning on contributing to it and you don't care, even if you're on the left and this is kind of shocking and you don't like this and you think these people are Nazis for doing something that's doesn't coincide with your belief system. I think it's, even in that case, worth you looking at this to see what the latest front of the culture wars is. If you're not familiar with the term culture wars, I think you can trace it back to Pat Buchanan's famous speech at the Republican National Convention in, I believe it was 1992, when he talked about basically the disaster going on in our culture and the battles that were being fought. And The culture wars have never gone away. If anything, they've gotten more heated, and they've been largely won by the left. So the left has been very successful. Of course, they control Hollywood. Most of what comes out of Hollywood is highly progressive leftist in nature, and you'll seldom ever see a representation of traditional American values, of patriotism, of honor, of love of country, of strong families. You'll very rarely see that represented in Hollywood. Most often you'll see that denigrated and laughed at, scoffed at. But here, with Alt Hero, what we have is an example of a very successful beginning to a powerful battle and front in the culture war. I used to work at a think tank. I worked in the library and archives of the Hoover Institution for a number of years, and they have a budget of something like $60 million a year. But I could pretty safely tell you that out of all that money that they spend every year, $60 million, they're not going to have nearly the impact of this $150,000 campaign. This is the type of thing that conservatives, people on the right, whatever you want to call it, need to be supporting in order to make a difference in the world. The saying, which I think holds true, goes that politics is downstream from culture. The type of culture that you have is going to indicate what the politics will be. Right now, we've had a very, very far to the left, more so than ever in American history, culture, and that has influenced politics, definitely. It's kind of a miracle when you think about it that Trump won. I don't think Trump is particularly far to the right, so it's not like it's the extreme opposite, but it's really, I think, surprising that he won given the overwhelming leftward drift of the culture over the past 30 to 50, maybe 60 years. So without drawing things out too long, I want to encourage you again, visit Freestartr, FREESTARTR.com. There's only a handful of projects on there, and you'll see Alt Hero. I think if you Google Alt Hero, you'll find it as well. And if you want some more information, then check out voxday.blogspot.com. And there's a really awesome video also for the Alt Hero launch video, so you can check that out on the Freestartr page. And you can maybe consider to, even if you give $5, that's a good thing that you could do to make a really worthy project out there. This is something that's going to be read by young people, by people who maybe are discouraged by the lack of options for something that is more in line with their worldview. So this is something people can get excited about, assuming that it goes well, which it already has ridiculously gone well. I mean, like I said, this is basically one guy, Vox, plus a handful of his friends and colleagues, people he knows, and within a month, less than a month, they've raised over $150,000. Not from just a handful of people, although a few people have given $5,000 or $5,000. I think like 6 or 7 people have. But the rest are just small donations, like I said, from $5 to $100, $150. And these are people who want to see something new in comics. They want to see a more positive, pro-Western civilization, pro-good storytelling, pro-traditional values type of product, and not some fake social justice warrior propaganda that's just being shoved down your throat. So I encourage you to check out Freestartr. Check out that video. Consider maybe giving a few bucks. There's 4 days left. Whether you give or not, this thing is already funded, like I said, 6 times past its initial goal. They added on some really awesome things at the end here. They're going to get a cartographer to do a very detailed map of Avalon, which is the name of the city and one of the series of comics that they're going to be doing as part of this project. They're starting a website that's going to allow people to give suggestions about what to do, and if you're a backer, you can comment, and it'll kind of keep the community growing and creating a new environment for this project to thrive. They're going to create a role-playing game. It's probably far off into the future, but maybe they can create a video game, animated shorts, and maybe something longer in the future. But the main thing is the comics, it's the stories. I'm really excited to read this. Like I said, I haven't really been into comics in quite a while, but now that I see the sad state of where comics are, and I see a project like this that can have a real effect on the culture, especially coinciding with this more patriotic nationalist turn in politics in America and in the West in general, I think it's just something really worthy of supporting. Thanks for listening in. If you like this podcast, I'd appreciate that you leave a review on iTunes. And otherwise, you can visit me, researchteacher.com, or on Twitter, @researchteacher. This is Nick signing off in Warsaw, Poland, chilly Warsaw, Poland. Talk to you guys next time. Bye.